All right, so we're going to start our actual steps. This is going to be part 3 of our little project 1. And what I did for my first step is I just went ahead and took my piece of scrap wood I found here. It can be 2x4, whatever you have around. Just make sure it's kind of nice for your hand. Even this one's a little bit too big for my hand, and it's just a little 2x1. So you're probably going to want to rasp it down a little bit so it fits a little nicer, but for this kind of situation, we're going to pretend that we don't have that ability right now. And I have this little piece of wood scrap dowel. You can use a little twig if you have it, and I'm just going to kind of drill down. And I have a 3/4 dowel and a 3/4 drill bit. And what that's going to do is I'm going to wedge that in there. I'm not going to use any glue. I'm just going to let friction hold it in there. And that's going to give us a nice little, as I rest it, it's going to, a little arrow rest to go right there. So that's our first one. That's our riser. So now we're going to move on to securing our limbs together and how to prep the limbs and get the pulleys all assembled. So we'll go ahead and start that. Your next step is going to start on your building your limbs. You're going to go ahead and grab 2 sections of your 16-inch length 1/2-inch pipe. You're going to need your pulley, your 2 bolts. Now, you would need 2 nuts for your bolts, but I'm going to pretend that I don't have one and I only have 1 nut, so I'm going to use the alternative of how to use the epoxy putty to actually secure the bolt in place so that way it doesn't come out. So what we're going to first do is we're going to secure these in our vise and we're going to drill them so all of our bolts have nice areas to go through and make sure they all line up. So let's go ahead and get that prepped. For this, I have a 1/8 drill bit because I have a 1/8 bolt, but depending on what pulley you're using and what size bolt or metal rod or whatever you happen to be using, you're going to want to use the drill bit that matches that size. So I'm going to go ahead and just clamp these in here together. Put a little pressure on it. Don't worry about it getting all marred up. Doesn't need to be pretty. And I'm just going to go about 1/2 inch down in the center. I'm going to go another about 1.5 inches, maybe just 1.25 inches. That's going to give us sets of holes on both sides that evenly match up. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to put a Phillips bit on here so that way I can go ahead and drive those through. I'm not going to worry about tapping the holes. They're going to be a little bit snug, but I'm going to just let the thread of the bolt go ahead and kind of thread that hole. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and start by kind of just starting it off. It's going to be very snug, so you're not going to probably get it all the way through unless you use a drill bit that's a little oversized. And see how those lined up and they went through nice and easy? I'm going to do the same thing. Back those out a little. So there you go. So now I have one strut. And I'm just going to go ahead and slide on my pulley there. And then just go ahead and tighten them up and let the two ends come together. Going back and forth, making sure you do it evenly so you don't get too much of a bow and kink or anything. Now you want to make sure it's not too tight so that way the pulley still has free motion. So you probably can't see it, but there you go. You can see the pulley kind of moving just easily there. So that's going to make our first actual limb. And you're just going to do the same process for the second one because they're just going to match. So why don't you go ahead and finish up your second one so it looks exactly like this one. And once you have that, we'll go ahead and start the next step. Both my limbs now constructed, and I've got my nuts and bolt here tightened down, but not too much so it still spins. Now I'm going to show you the alternative way. So if you didn't have a bolt, you just had a piece of metal rod that you put through, something like that, and you want to find a way to secure it.